Hey guys, if you're shopping for knives and gear, make sure you check out the description of the video you're watching right now for links to some great online retailers. There's also individual links for knives that I personally recommend. Thanks! What's going on YouTube? Metal Complex here, and today I've got another interesting knife review / knife overview to share with you guys. This is the Microtech Exocet. I hope that I'm pronouncing that correctly. Very interesting little OTF. This knife was sent to me by @sharp_marbles on Instagram. Please give him a follow. It's because of him I'm able to bring you guys daily knife content. It's also because of my generous patrons. If you are enjoying the daily content of this channel and you'd like to support this channel and get your hands on some cool stickers and stuff, there is of course a link right down in the description. You're supporting the world to me. And please follow me on Instagram at metal_complex. Alright, so first off, this is an OTF, and it is a Microtech. It seems like whenever I do a Microtech review, there's always a whole bunch of people going, you know, Microtechs are overpriced and I can get an OTF through X company. In fact, that's pretty much the common, you know, I get that with like every video. On this channel, I review knives that cost $20, and I've reviewed knives that cost $3,000. I review knives from all different parts of the world, right? I look at things that I think might interest me, that I feel like have an air, you know, of course, an air of quality about them, considering their price parameters, and who cater to a specific audience. This is a Microtech knife, and it is a small knife. It is made in the United States, and there's more that goes into it than, you know, let's say the Lightning OTF, right? So it's going to cost more money. It's going to be more valuable to people who care about those extra elements. For people who don't care about those extra elements, not going to be, you know, worth as much, right? But it does factually cost more money. That's something, that's a foundation that cannot be ignored. On top of that, I understand that this is a small OTF, but it is not meant to, you know, they're not suggesting that this is going to be a better OTF than any of the other ones out there that are longer. No, in fact, this is very specifically catered to people who, number one, live in an area where the legal blade length for an automatic knife is kind of ridiculous, right? California specifically, this is a Cali legal auto, so this is obviously catered towards them. This is also a knife that is meant to be used kind of like a money clip, right? So for people who, you know, want to carry, you know, kind of an unassuming automatic knife, right, who are restricted by the, you know, the laws in their area, and at the same time like the idea of having something that is a money clip, and some, you know, people who appreciate those extra elements that go into a US-made knife, then yeah, it's going to be perfect. But if you're not somebody that's really in that wheelhouse, right, then they're not really targeting. That's not really, you're probably not who it's made for. So I want everybody to keep that in mind, because I'm sure that there's a lot of elements here that I can just see it coming, right? There's going to be a lot of people who jump in and leave aggressive comments and things. Just keep in mind this is likely made for a very specific audience, and I'm going to speak to that, right? Give my thoughts on that. Let's go ahead and do some size comparisons. Get this guy out here real quick. This is not a big knife, obviously. So up against the Ontario Rat Model 1, the Rat 1 is coming in at 8.6 inches overall. Well, actually, you know what? We should measure it. I had to give that long speech at the beginning, so let me go ahead and measure it. Overall length of the Exocet coming in on the handle, 5 1/4. If you're going to go to the... Is this a glass breaker? I don't know what we're calling that. Out to, I guess, the breaker, we're going to call it 5.6 inches overall. Blade length is coming in, well, about 2 inches. The cutting edge is definitely 1.8, right? I think they officially measure this at 1.9 inches, right? If you're going to go right to the center, it is definitely 1.9. So it's going to hit that legal mark, and it's going to be really great for people who are, I feel for people who are limited, right, by those types of laws that are ridiculous. I feel for them. So I appreciate companies like Microtech and ProTech and other companies really trying to cater to people who want the convenience and utility of an automatic knife, but are, you know, basically just held in place by some of these laws, right? So I appreciate that. As somebody, I mean, I live in Kansas. I can carry whatever I want, but I feel for people who can't. Anyways, let's go ahead and compare it up against the Spyderco PM2. Spyderco PM2 coming in at 8.3 inches overall. How about up against the Benchmade Griptilian, or in this case, the Ritter Hogue? Ritter Hogue coming in at 8 inches overall. How about up against the Spyderco Para 3? Spyderco Para 3 is coming in at 7¼ inches overall. And last but not least, the Mini Griptilian, which is... There it is. Mini Griptilian, smallest knife that I use as a size comparison knife. Mini Griptilian coming in at 6.75 inches overall. How's the action on this guy? This is a Microtech knife. Considering, you know, how thin the frame is, obviously they've got a unique, probably a semi-unique chassis in here. The spring isn't quite as long, so it doesn't have quite the throw of, say, a Combat Troodon, right? I can't really expect this thing to have the same type of power as a Combat Troodon. Comparatively, I mean, the Troodon, like, if the Combat Troodon feels about 20 to 25% more powerful than an Ultratech, right? I would say, as far as people's experience with Microtech knives, the Ultratech is probably the most common. So if you've got an Ultratech in your hand right now and you're wondering, what does the firepower feel like compared to an Ultratech? I would say it's probably 40% of that. Is that enough to throw the blade? Obviously, it is. The whole idea here is that the blade comes out. It doesn't need to be powerful enough to puncture anything. In fact, no OTF is really designed to do that. It's just supposed to throw the blade. I think it'll be fine. I think after a while, you know, honestly, I think you're going to have to make sure that you keep up, you know, with maintenance on this. That is the case with all OTFs. I don't care if it's a Lightning. I don't care if it's a Vespa, or, you know, I know people, those Cobra Techs and those, you're never going to see a Cobra Tech review on this channel. You're never going to see a, what's the other one? Raven Crest. Guys, those are Microtech clones. Those are Microtech clones. They are doing everything they possibly can to capture the popular elements of a Microtech knife. In previous reviews, I have held off from saying those names, but I'm just going to say it. You're never going to see those OTFs, those types of knives on this channel, because it's blatant, it's clear what they're doing. So, no, you're just never going to see them. But it doesn't matter what the OTF is, you're going to have to keep up with maintenance. As far as I know, Microtech knives use REM oil from the factory. That's a dry lubricant, Teflon-based lubricant that's really good. Now, if they've changed that, then I'm sorry. Maybe I'm misinforming people. But as far as I'm aware, that's what they have used. And my experience using REM oil has been great. Actually, every Microtech knife that I have owned, periodically, I'll give it a little bit of a spray with some REM oil, and I mean, you know, every 3 months or so. The more you use it, the more dirty it gets. Obviously, it's going to require more. In some cases, it might actually require that you take it apart, which is difficult because we're looking at tri-wing screws, right? So unless you want to send it in or fork over the money for the tool, that's going to make it a little bit more difficult. Yeah, I would say in this case, you know, you don't have much of a blade, and it doesn't have far to travel, and it's not rubbing, right? So there's no friction or anything like that, but at some point, you know, it might get to a point where it really just needs the extra, the help of some REM oil, and that's the same thing with a folding knife, right? These knives, no OTF is designed to deploy forever. We live in a finite universe, so we are, you know, we're bound by the laws of physics. At some point, these are going to wear down, right? Is this thing going to wear down faster than some OTFs that might be less expensive, right? In terms of like whether or not the blade fully deploys, maybe, right? But it takes a specific form and is catered to a specific group of people, right? And there are different limitations with this knife, right? Not just because it says Microtech on it, we can't necessarily expect the exact same thing from every different design. It takes a different, you know, shape. It's a different dimension, different parameters and stuff, right? So I'm going to say, you know, despite the fact that it's a shorter blade, it doesn't have as far to go. I'm going to guess that at some point you're just going to need to make sure that you know, use some REM oil and stuff. This isn't a knife that you're really going to take out and get super duper dirty. It's not a knife that was meant for that environment, you know. It's expensive, sure. That doesn't necessarily, it's meant to take out and be used hard and survive the apocalypse, no. But I'm just going to guess, you know, you're going to need to hit it with some REM oil every now and then to make sure that that blade continuously deploys. All right. Enough of that. It is nice. I mean, truthfully, though, I mean, this thing has not failed. at all since I've had it, and I've probably deployed it 100 times or so. The gentleman who had it, he said that he had dropped it and jammed it, and so he had to send it back into Microtech, and they fixed it, and they obviously did a great job, right? And then he also told me that he sharpened it on his KME. Looks like the bevel is pretty close to where the factory one was, so that's fine with me. But you know, after Microtech did their thing with it, it looks like it's working just fine. So it is fun to play with, though, and it's the switch is in a comfortable place, so obviously it's working just fine there. Boy, that was a long discussion about the action there. How's the carry profile? It's very thin, very thin. This is pretty wide, but it's not that wide compared to some other common types of pocket knives, right? Definitely thinner. Carry profile up against the Spyderco PM2 and Para 3. This is a little bit, I mean, I would say it's about 50% larger than a dog tag, and maybe like 50% longer, and maybe about 20%, 15% wider than a dog tag. Up against two knives with awkward carry profiles, the PM2 and Para 3. You can see they're nowhere near as long, and height, no, even including the switch, right? Even considering this is basically a big rectangle, a tall rectangle. No, it's bigger than your average money clip for sure, but it also takes the form of a pocket knife, and it's nice and thin. So all things considered, I'm pretty impressed that they managed to make this work. I think that's the big thing here. You know, I can see something like this coming under tremendous fire, but it's kind of impressive that it exists, right? This doesn't exist anywhere else, and I want to give credit where it's due. I think it's cool that they did this, right? Let's see here. Hardware check, we can't do it because, unfortunately, we have these tri-wing screws. Yeah, that sucks. I'm at the point now where proprietary hardware, I'm kind of like, you know, this might be a knife where I would feel more comfortable about the fact that the spring's not quite as powerful, right? And maybe it is going to need a little more maintenance. I would really like to be able to take this thing apart without having to spend money on the tool. The tool is not horribly expensive, but I would rather it just be Torx. Now, Microtech has shown, you know, signs of moving in that direction with their new Scarab 2. They are using Torx heads. So maybe we'll start to see that down the road. Is that the future of the Exocet? I have no idea, right? By the way, this comes in two forms, the dual edge and the new Tanto. It also comes in a bajillion different colors and different blade finishes, stuff like that. I will link the Exocet down below, as well as Microtech knives in general, so you guys can take a look, see what they've got. So yeah, we can't do the hardware check, and the pocket clip is fixed in here with additional tri-wing screws right there. So pocket clip sure isn't going anywhere, or the money clip, whatever you want to call it. It's definitely not going anywhere, and it'll carry nice and deep, right? It's just it's big, and it's permanently, well, not permanently, but it's pretty, you know, impassively secured to the to the frame. Okay, weight. Let's go ahead and do weight here. We have incredible thinness on this edge, even though, you know, you don't have necessarily an enormous amount of room to drop to the cutting edge. And given this has been resharpened, this is a wafer thin blade. You can see there. Look at the blade stock. Nothing. Let's take a look at the blade stock on like the gosh darn it, that thing has disappeared on me twice now. The Benchmade Griptilian. Blade stock thickness on the Griptilian, right? Not a thick blade. Look at this guy. Whew, this is the mini Griptilian. Wafer thin blade. Very thin. It's going to be slicey. Definitely. We're looking at 6061 T6 aluminum and some steel on the internal chassis. Weight. 3 ounces. That's pretty heavy considering you're only getting 1.9 ounces of blade. It's right on that line where, for anybody who doesn't know, like, I get that there are people who really care about the difference between, like, you know, let's say a blade like this, 3 ounces for 1.9 inches of cutting edge, versus, like, the bug out, which weighs, what, 1.8 to 2.4 ounces, depending on what material you get, something like that, and you get 3.4 inches of blade. If the ratios are really your thing, I can understand that, but again, consider who this is catered towards. People who want to carry an OTF, who live in California, don't have a choice, and also might be looking for a fancier, you know, cocktail party carry, or office carry, right, if their office allows it. Then, okay, yeah, if you're going to go by those ratios, though, then it's probably not going to be that impressive to you. But for me, It's a rectangle that weighs 3 ounces. It's really not going to be that cumbersome. It's not going to be something that really bothers me. I think that, you know, truthfully, in and out of the pocket, this thing does pretty well. I'm wearing athletic shorts right now, and it's just not something that really bothers me. A lot of surface contact up against the pocket, right? It's carried securely, and you can pack, you know, money into it. Do I have some cash? Yeah, okay. So, how do people do this? I'm not somebody who regularly uses a money clip, right? But if you do, there you go. Or maybe you do it like this, right? Whatever. It'll work if you want to carry it in your pocket like that. It certainly will do the job. I don't have an issue with it. All right. So, anyways, moving on here, taking a look at the, you know, the anatomy or the anatomy of the knife. We have this sort of texturing going on right here. It's okay. I honestly would have preferred that it was all just flat and just had the typical Microtech look, but this is okay. Don't have an issue with it. The firing switch is pretty typical for Microtech. Just push it up, pull it back down, works just fine. Does it wiggle a little bit? Some Microtechs do, some don't. Wiggles in the open and closed position. In the closed position, no, I honestly can't shake it and hear any rattles, so it doesn't really bother me. Seams and everything are nicely meeting up. There's no sharp edges or anything like that. How is it ergonomically? It's a big rectangle. There's nothing to speak of in the way of, you know, functional ergonomics. It's not really meant to be, you know, bared down on or used in an environment where, you know, it's really going to matter. You can technically get a full 4-finger purchase on it, but it's not comfortable. It's just meant to be taken out and open up quick box or something, right? It's kind of a conversation piece. I get it. Blade looks good. In this case, I'm fairly certain, yeah, 204p, which is an analog to M390. I think that's plenty appropriate for this type of knife. The fuller goes right up the center, and it does, the line goes right up to the tip. Keep in mind that this was resharpened. This blade is tumbled. I'm sure they come in a number of different finishes. I don't have any issue with the blade whatsoever. It's certainly going to slice. It's going to puncture. It's not going to be the best at any one specific task, but opening letters and opening boxes, can you do it? Sure, absolutely. It's got a lanyard thing on the back of it. If you want to put a lanyard on it, you can. I wouldn't. I'm not really sure what all this noise back here is, but okay, it's there. It's not really obtrusive, and it's not pokey, right? It's not really bothering me. Pocket clip carries nearly absolutely deep. It's really just this triangle. It's going to be sticking up out of your pocket, and this knife can be, you know, it really is kind of set up for right-handed carry. I think you can switch the pocket clip. Yeah, if you take this off, you should be able to switch the pocket clip to the other side, and left-handed people can carry it. So it is technically an ambidextrous knife, even though this is off-centered. I don't think left-handed people are going to care which side of the frame the blade is on, right? If you can switch the pocket clip, they're going to enjoy it and be able to enjoy it the same way, roughly, as a right-handed person. So yeah, there's really not much to this, right? What does this come in at? $250. Do I think that's too much money? Truthfully, yeah, I think it is. You know, if this came in at like $180, I'd be like, oh, that's super cool, right? I mean, I understand Microtech knives does kind of have a reputation for having some overpriced stuff. I think like the Ultratech is a good price. There's a lot of things where it's kind of, so what am I basing that on? I don't know. I mean, it's made with the same materials, right? It's just not, and I always say like the size and the total amount of material doesn't have as much to do with it, right? So, I don't know. This is a gut feeling thing. It's just, it's hard for me. It would be really hard for me, even living in California and finding something like this to be of benefit or of major interest. It would still be kind of hard for me to fork over that much money. I think the most that I'd really want to see this come in at is about $200. Very specifically, people who live in California like the idea of a knife and money clip combination, right? And want an OTF and are limited by that law. I think that you're going to, you know, find, you know, value in this. I think that you're going to enjoy this. But specifically, those people, other people maybe who just like the idea, if you really like Microtech knives, you like the idea of a, you know, money clip combination OTF, right? Whether you live in an area that, you know, has ridiculous blade length parameters or not, you know, maybe you will. It's one of those knives where just the vast majority of people are not really going to find as much value in it. Can I understand kind of how they got to that price, right? A lot of people are going to look at that and go, that should only be $50. If they charged $50 on it, they would lose money on every single one of these, right? These factually cost a lot more to make than some of the stuff you might find on Etsy and Wish. Not saying that you're going to find a pocket clip / OTF that's a Cali legal. This is pretty unique, right? So we're kind of in between there. But no, they can't charge $50 on this thing and expect to make money. They still have to turn a profit, right? there's not a ton of people out there specifically looking for this. And while I will say that it is made well, it is made with premium materials, and it is going to work perfectly for people looking for exactly this item. But most people aren't looking for exactly this item. So it's not something that, you know, if you're looking for this, if you're looking for specifically this, then sure, I can recommend this. It's made well, right? For everybody else, no, you know. So I'm torn, right? It's like, do I put it on the, I can't really justify putting it on the recommended list because it just doesn't, there's not enough people out there that this is going to speak to, right? That it's going to be beneficial. I understand that I'm foggy and kind of gray on what goes on that list and not, and I think it's best that I keep it that way. My gut feeling is this is just not a knife that I can recommend to everybody, but it is a Microtech. It feels like a Microtech. It's cool, right? It's kind of gimmicky, but some people like that, and that's okay. So I don't know. It's not something that I would fork over the money for. But again, if you live in California, you want an OTF, you can carry one at work, you want something fancy tactical, right? You like money clips, maybe this is for you. They got a lot of different colors, a lot of different, I think, finishes, different blade styles. They got at least 2 different blade styles, so that's cool. But it's just an interesting, almost novelty item that absolutely does have, you know, function to it. So that's about all I can say, honestly. I think this is cool. Guys, that's going to be pretty much it for today's review. Please make sure to follow me on Instagram at metal_complex. If you enjoyed this video, please leave a like. If you'd like to check out my other content, I do, of course, have lots of videos of knives that are either expensive or inexpensive that I do or don't like, so check those out. And if you enjoy all my content, go ahead and click on that Metal Complex logo right there and subscribe because there's definitely more coming. Thanks again for watching, everybody, and have a great day.